The courtroom fell silent as the judges delivered their sentence. The alien criminal, a large creature covered in dark scales, showed no emotion. Everyone in the galaxy knew what drift exposure meant. It was death. Quick, but terrible. Captain Jae-won Kim sat in the observation gallery, watching through the transparent wall. He had never seen a drift exposure sentence before. Humans were still new to the Galactic Coalition. They had only joined 15 years ago, and most aliens still treated them like children who needed constant supervision. Next to Jae-won, Dr. Hai-won Park leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the proceedings below. She was the chief scientist on his ship, the Horizon's Edge. Her mind always worked differently from others, seeing patterns where most people saw chaos. "They are sending him to the Whisper Drift," she whispered to Jae-won. "Do you know what that is?" Jae-won nodded slowly. Every species in the Coalition knew about the Whisper Drift. It was a region of space that nobody understood. Ships that went too close never came back. The few survivors who had been near its edge all went insane. They spoke of voices that filled their heads, whispers that never stopped. Most of them died within days, their brains simply giving up. The judges finished speaking. Guards led the criminal away. He would be placed in a small escape pod and launched toward the drift's edge. The whispers would reach him within minutes. Death would follow soon after. It was considered merciful compared to other execution methods. "Why are we here?" Jae-won asked Commander Velthar, his first officer. The insectoid alien's compound eyes reflected the courtroom lights. "Coalition protocol." Velthar clicked his mandibles together, his species' version of a sigh. "Human ships must observe judicial proceedings. You are still on probation." Jae-won felt the familiar frustration rising. Humans had faster ships than most Coalition species. Their technology was different, sometimes better, but the older races treated them like reckless teenagers. The observation session ended. Jae-won and his crew returned to their ship, docked at the station orbiting the planet. Hai-won walked beside him, quiet and thoughtful. "Something bothers me about the drift," she said as they entered the ship's corridor. "What is it?" "The neural patterns. I read all the survivor reports. The way their brains failed does not match normal sensory overload. It is something else." Jae-won had learned to trust Hai-won's instincts. She saw things others missed. "What are you thinking?" "I am not sure yet, but I want to study it more." 3 days later, everything changed. The Horizon's Edge was conducting routine patrol near the sector boundary. They were mapping safe travel routes, boring work that most of the crew hated. Jae-won sat in the captain's chair, reading reports, when the navigation alarm screamed. "What is happening?" he shouted. Young technician Dongmin Lee's fingers flew across his console. "Gravitational anomaly! Something is pulling us off course!" The ship shuddered. Warning lights flashed red across every station. Velthar gripped his console, his antennae rigid with fear. "It is the drift," the insectoid whispered. "We are too close to the Whisper Drift." Jae-won's heart pounded. He had never been this close before. Nobody had, not voluntarily. "Full reverse, get us away." But the ship continued forward, drawn by invisible forces. The view screen showed something impossible ahead. Space itself looked wrong there, twisted like reality was breaking apart. Then they heard it. Whispers. They came from everywhere and nowhere. Soft voices speaking in languages that should not exist. Some crew members screamed, others fell from their chairs, convulsing. Velthar collapsed, his body twitching. Jae-won felt the whispers crawling through his mind. They felt like ice water poured directly into his brain. His vision blurred. The ship's controls looked like they were melting, but he did not fall. He gripped the captain's chair and forced his eyes to focus. His hands shook as he reached for the manual controls. The whispers grew louder, but he pushed through them. With tremendous effort, He fired the emergency thrusters. The horizon's edge lurched backward, slowly pulling away from the drift's influence. The whispers faded. Jaewon gasped for air, his whole body trembling. Around the bridge, crew members lay unconscious. Only 2 people were still awake. Hee-won stood at her station, pale and shaking, but conscious. Her eyes met Jaewon's across the bridge. "Did you hear them?" she asked, her voice barely steady. "Yes." "Did you understand them?" Jaewon paused. That was the strange part. The whispers had been terrifying, overwhelming, but underneath the fear, there had been something else. Not exactly words, but patterns. Almost like meaning. I am not sure," he said. "Maybe." Hye-won's expression changed. Despite her fear, Jaewon saw excitement in her eyes. "Captain, everyone else is unconscious. Commander Velthar, Dongmin, all of them. But you and I are awake." "What does that mean?" "I do not know yet, but it means something." Medical Officer Kellex, a being made of living crystal, arrived on the bridge. The doctor moved from crew member to crew member, scanning them with medical instruments. "3 are in comas," Kellex announced, his voice chiming like bells. "The others will wake soon, but they will need treatment. Commander Velthar's neural patterns are severely damaged. You were very close to the drift. Too close. How did you escape?" "Captain Jaewon piloted us out manually," Hye-won said. Kellex's crystalline form shifted colors, showing surprise. "That should be impossible. The whisper drift overwhelms all conscious thought. No one can function that close to it." "Humans did," Hye-won said quietly. Over the next hours, Jaewon filed his report. Coalition Command was furious that his ship had gotten so close to the drift. They ordered the horizon's edge back to the nearest station immediately. But as Jaewon sat in his quarters that night, he could not stop thinking about the whispers. They had been terrifying. Everyone said the drift meant certain death. But he had survived. And somehow, deep in his mind where the whispers had touched, Jaewon felt something he could not explain. It was not just random noise. There had been purpose in those sounds. The whisper drift was not just killing people. It was trying to say something, and for the first time in galactic history, someone had lived long enough to notice. The medical bay smelled of antiseptic and ozone. Jaewon stood beside Commander Velthar's bed, watching the insectoid's shallow breathing. 3 days had passed since their encounter with the drift, and Velthar still had not woken up. "Will he recover?" Jaewon asked. Dr. Kellex made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Unknown. His neural pathways were damaged in ways I have never seen. The other 2 coma patients show similar patterns. Whatever touched their minds left scars." Jaewon felt guilt twist in his stomach. His crew had been hurt because of a navigation error. At least that was the official story. The Coalition investigators had blamed a solar flare for disrupting their instruments. But Jaewon knew the truth was more complicated. He found Hye-won in her laboratory, surrounded by data screens. She had barely slept since the incident, spending every moment analyzing their encounter. "You should rest," Jaewon said. "I cannot rest. Look at this." She pulled up a series of waveforms on her main screen. "These are the recordings from our sensors when we were near the drift. Do you see these patterns?" Jaewon studied the chaotic lines. They looked like random noise to him. "What am I looking for?" "Exactly that. Everyone sees random noise. But watch." Her fingers danced across the controls. The waveforms shifted, filtered through different parameters. Suddenly, beneath the chaos, regular patterns emerged. "It is not random. There is structure here, like language." "Language? From what?" "That is what I am trying to understand." But Jaewon, there is something else. She pulled up medical scans. These are neural readings from the crew during the incident. Everyone's brain activity spiked, then crashed, except ours, yours and mine. We were affected too. I could barely think. Yes, but we stayed conscious. Our neural patterns adapted. Human brains process sensory information differently than other species. We evolved in chaos, dealing with constantly changing environments. Our neural networks are messy, flexible. Most alien species have more efficient, specialized brains. And that helped us? I think so. The drift's signals operate on frequencies that rigid neural structures cannot process. It overwhelms them, like forcing too much electricity through a circuit. But human brains are less specialized. We bent instead of breaking. Jaewon sat down heavily. What are you suggesting? I want to go back. With proper equipment and shielding, we could record more data. Maybe understand what the drift actually is. Absolutely not. Coalition Command ordered us to stay away. I could face court-martial for what happened. But what if the drift is not what everyone thinks? What if it is not trying to kill people? Before Jaewon could respond, the ship's communication system activated. An official coalition message appeared on the screen. Jaewon read it twice, not believing what he saw. What is wrong? Haiwan asked. The coalition science vessel Eternal Dawn. 200 crew members. They were studying dark matter near the sector boundary when something went wrong. They drifted into the Whisper Drift's influence zone. Haiwan went pale. How long ago? 6 hours. They have maybe 12 more before complete neural collapse kills everyone aboard. Can they escape? Their engines are offline. Life support is failing. They are stuck. Silence filled the laboratory. Both of them knew what this meant. 200 people were going to die. The coalition had rescue ships, but none would go near the drift. It was forbidden. Suicide. We have to help them, Hyewan said. With what? We barely survived being near the edge. That ship is inside the drift zone. But we did survive. We are the only ones who can. Jaewon walked to the observation window, staring out at the stars. Command would never approve a rescue mission. The drift was absolutely forbidden. Approaching it again would end his career at minimum, possibly get him executed. But 200 lives. He made his decision. Wake up, Dongmin, he told Hyewan. Tell him to prepare the ship for immediate departure, and find me every volunteer crew member who is willing to risk their life. 2 hours later, 5 humans gathered in the conference room. Besides Jaewon and Hyewan, there was Dongmin the technician, Jiho Yoon the pilot, and Yoonmi Choi from security. The rest of the crew, mostly aliens, were terrified of the drift. Jaewon did not blame them. You all know what I am asking, Jaewon said. This mission is not authorized. It is probably suicide. If you want to refuse, do it now. No judgment. Nobody moved. All right then. Hyewan, explain your plan. Hyewan activated a holographic display of the drift. The Eternal Dawn is here, approximately 3 light minutes inside the influence zone. Based on our previous encounter, I believe human neural patterns can withstand the whispers for limited periods. We will need to navigate carefully, using manual controls since our computers will likely fail. How do we get the Eternal Dawn out? Jiho asked. We attach tow cables and pull them free. Once outside the drift's influence, their engines should work again. Dongmin frowned. That means we have to go deeper into the drift than any ship has ever gone and survived. Yes. Yoonmi leaned forward. What if the whispers are too strong? What if we all pass out like the others? Hyewan hesitated. Then we die. But I do not think that will happen. I think human minds can adapt to the drift. We just need to try. Jaewon stood. Prepare the ship. We leave in 1 hour. And nobody tells Coalition Command until we are already gone. The Horizon's Edge launched from the station, heading toward the Forbidden Zone. Jaewon sat in the captain's chair, his hands steady despite his racing heart. Around him, his small human crew worked quietly. As they approached the drift, sensors began failing. The view screen showed that same twisted, wrong-looking space ahead. Then the whispers began. They were quieter at first, like distant voices. But as the ship moved closer, they grew louder. Jaewon felt them pressing against his thoughts, trying to push inside. "Stay focused." Haewon's voice cut through the noise. "Do not fight them. Let them flow around you." Jaewon did not understand, but he tried. Instead of resisting the whispers, he relaxed. The sensation changed. The whispers still felt uncomfortable, alien, but less overwhelming. "It is working," Jiho gasped from the pilot station. "I can think. I can focus." The ship pushed deeper. Space around them looked increasingly impossible. Directions stopped making sense. The stars appeared wrong. "There," Dongmin pointed. "The eternal dawn." The science vessel floated ahead, dark and silent. No lights, no movement. "Yunmi, prepare the tow cables," Jaewon ordered. As they worked, Jaewon noticed something strange. The whispers had changed. They felt almost curious, like they were aware the horizon's edge was there, aware that someone was listening. On impulse, Jaewon did something crazy. He spoke out loud. "We hear you," he said to the empty bridge. "We are listening." The whispers stopped completely for one heartbeat. Then everything changed. The chaos around the ship settled, the twisted space smoothed slightly, the crushing pressure on Jaewon's mind eased. Haewon stared at him with wide eyes. "What did you just do?" "I do not know," Jaewon whispered. "But I think something answered." The eternal dawn hung in space like a dead thing. No lights flickered on its hull. No engines glowed. Through the horizon's edge view screen, it looked like a tomb. "Life signs?" Jaewon asked, though he feared the answer. Dongmin checked his failing sensors. "Weak. Very weak. Most of the crew is unconscious, but they are alive. Barely." Jiho guided their ship closer, his hands gripping the manual controls. The whispers filled the bridge, constant and strange. But after Jaewon had spoken to them, they felt different, less hostile, almost waiting. "Tow cables ready," Eunmi reported from her station. "Deploy them," Jaewon ordered. The cables launched, magnetic clamps seeking the eternal dawn's hull. Time seemed to move strangely this deep in the drift. Seconds felt like minutes. Movements looked delayed, like watching through thick water. Haewon worked at her console, recording everything. Her face showed intense concentration. "The drift is responding to us. The patterns are changing based on our presence. It is not random chaos. It is reactive." "Reactive to what?" Eunmi asked. "To consciousness. To minds. It is like it wants to communicate, but does not know how." The clamps connected with solid thumps that echoed through both ships. Dongmin checked the connections. "Secure. We can pull them." "Begin tow operations," Jaewon said. "Slow and steady." The horizon's edge engaged its engines. The ship shuddered as it began pulling the larger science vessel. Progress was painfully slow. Every meter they moved required tremendous effort. The whispers grew louder. Jaewon felt pressure building in his skull. His vision blurred at the edges. Around him, his crew struggled. Dongmin's hands shook. Jiho's breathing came in short gasps. Eunmi had gone pale, sweat running down her face. "We are not going to make it," Jiho gasped. "It is too much, too strong." Jaewon felt it too. The whispers were not angry, but they were overwhelming. Like trying to have a conversation with an ocean. Too big, too vast. "Talk to them," Haewon said suddenly. "Captain, talk to them again. It helped before." Jaewon did not know what to say. How do you speak to something that exists outside normal reality? But they were dying. His crew was dying. The 200 souls on the eternal dawn were dying. He closed his eyes and spoke. "We understand you are trying to communicate. We want to understand. But you are too strong for us. Our minds are small. Please, if you can hear this, help us. Help us save these people." Silence. Then something impossible happened. The whispers formed words, not in any language Jaewon knew, but somehow he understood them anyway. They bypassed his ears and went straight into his thoughts. Small minds, new, different, flexible. The pressure eased, not completely, but enough. Jaewon could breathe again. Around the bridge, his crew gasped with relief. "It is helping us," Jaewon whispered in wonder. It actually responded. Why enter forbidden space? Others always flee. Jaewon spoke carefully, not knowing if it could still hear him. "We came to save lives. The ship we are pulling has 200 crew members. They are dying from exposure to you. Not dying from us, dying from themselves. Their minds break, too rigid, cannot bend. Yes, most species cannot survive contact with you, but we can. A little. You are different. You adapt. This is good. This is needed." The ship lurched forward. The eternal dawn was moving faster now, as if the drift itself was helping push them toward safety. The twisted space around them began to straighten. "We are approaching the edge," Jiho called out. "Another 30 seconds and we will be clear." The whispers spoke again in Jaewon's mind. "We have waited long, alone." No one could hear. You must listen. Danger comes, you must prepare. What danger? What do you mean? No time. Must speak more. Will wait for you. Come back. Bring more who can hear. The horizon's edge broke free from the drift's influence. Suddenly, the crushing pressure vanished. The whispers faded to silence. Normal space surrounded them, stable and familiar. Jaewon slumped in his chair, exhausted. Around him, his crew looked equally drained. "Status report," he managed to say. Dongmin checked his systems. "All systems coming back online. The Eternal Dawn is with us. Their engines are starting to function again." "And our crew?" "Everyone conscious, but barely." Dongmin looked at the captain with new respect. "We did it. We actually went into the whisper drift and came back." Communication came through from the Eternal Dawn, a weak voice, filled with confusion. "Horizon's Edge, this is Science Officer Krell. What happened? Where are we?" Jaewon activated the communication channel. "You drifted into the whisper drift. We pulled you out. How is your crew?" "Unconscious. All of them. I just woke. I do not understand how we survived." "Medical ships are on the way. You are safe now." As promised, Coalition rescue vessels arrived within the hour. They took the Eternal Dawn's crew for treatment, but they also brought security ships, armed ships. A stern alien admiral appeared on the view screen. "Captain Jaewon Kim, you are under arrest for violating Coalition law. You entered forbidden space without authorization." Jaewon had expected this. "I violated regulations to save 200 lives." "That does not matter. The law is clear. No one enters the drift zone under any circumstances." Before Jaewon could respond, Haewon stepped forward. "Admiral, we made contact. The drift is not what you think it is." "Explain." "It is not a natural phenomenon. It is something alive, conscious. It spoke to us." The Admiral's expression showed disbelief. "That is impossible. The whisper drift has been studied for thousands of years. It is a spatial anomaly, nothing more." "With respect, Admiral, it has never been studied by anyone who survived prolonged contact. Humans can survive it. We can communicate with it. And it told us something important. It said, danger is coming." "What danger?" It did not have time to explain. "But it wants to speak with us more." The Admiral was silent for a long moment. "Captain Kim, You and your crew will return to the Coalition capital immediately. Your ship is impounded. This conversation is not over. The communication ended. Jae-won looked at his crew. Ji-ho looked older somehow, exhausted beyond his years. Eun-mi sat very still, her eyes distant. Dong-min trembled slightly, and Hee-won looked determined but worried. "What did we do?" Dong-min asked quietly. "We proved something everyone said was impossible," Jae-won answered. "We went into the Whisper Drift and came back. We spoke with it, and it spoke back." "Will they listen to us?" Eun-mi asked. "I do not know. But 200 people are alive because we tried. That has to count for something." As the horizon's edge turned toward Coalition space, Jae-won thought about the voice in his mind, the vast presence that had helped them. It had been alone for so long, waiting for someone who could hear, and it had warned them. Danger comes. Jae-won did not know what that meant, but he knew one thing with certainty. The Whisper Drift was not a death sentence anymore. It was a conversation, and that conversation had only just begun. The Coalition capital world gleamed below like a jewel. 50 different species lived here, working together in the largest government in the galaxy. Jae-won had been here only twice before, both times for ceremonies. Now he came as a prisoner. Security officers escorted him and his crew through gleaming corridors to a massive chamber, the council hall. Hundreds of aliens filled the seats, representing every major civilization. At the center sat the High Council, 12 beings who made decisions that affected trillions of lives. Jae-won stood before them, aware of countless eyes watching. "Captain Jae-won Kim," the head counselor began. She was a floating creature made of shifting energy, ancient beyond measure. "You violated the most sacred law of the Coalition. You entered the Whisper Drift Zone. Explain yourself." Jae-won straightened his shoulders. "I saved 200 lives. By risking your own crew. By ignoring direct orders. The drift is forbidden for good reason. It kills everyone who approaches." "Not everyone," Hye-won spoke up beside him. "Humans survived. We can tolerate the drift's influence." Murmurs ran through the chamber. The head counselor's energy field rippled with what might have been surprise. "Impossible. No species can survive the Whisper Drift." "We have proof," Hye-won said. She activated a small projector, showing recordings from their mission. The council watched in silence as the horizon's edge entered the drift, pulled out the eternal dawn, and escaped. When the recording ended, the chamber erupted in argument. Some counselors demanded Jae-won's execution. Others called for more study. A few looked thoughtful. One counselor stood. He was an ancient reptilian, scales worn smooth with age. "Counselor Thex requests permission to speak." The head counselor gestured approval. Thex moved slowly to the chamber center. His voice carried the weight of centuries. "I am old, very old. Old enough to remember what we have tried to forget." Every being in the chamber fell silent. "The Whisper Drift is not a natural phenomenon," Thex continued. 50,000 years ago, my ancestors' civilization encountered it. Along with 3 other species, they tried to communicate with what lived inside. Jae-won felt his heart race. "What happened?" "Disaster. The neural incompatibility was worse than today. Millions died in the first contact. Entire planets went mad. The survivors panicked. They tried to destroy the drift using weapons, but failed, so they did the next best thing. They declared it forbidden, made it into a death sentence, built fear so strong that everyone would stay away." "You knew it was alive?" Hye-won's voice shook with anger. "You have known for 50,000 years and said nothing?" The knowledge was classified, buried. Only the oldest families remember. "We thought it was safer if everyone believed the drift was just a spatial anomaly. If no one tried to communicate, no one would die." "But that was wrong," Jae-won said. "You could have studied it, found a way." With what species? Thex asked. Every race that tried died. Until now. Until humans. He turned to the council. These humans have done what no other species could. They communicated with the drift. They survived. The head counselor's energy field pulsed. What did it say to you? Jae-won took a breath. It said danger is coming. It wants to warn us. It has been waiting for someone who could hear its message. A new voice joined the discussion. A scientist named Subin Kang called from Earth to help analyze the data. She was young for a researcher, but brilliant. I have studied the recordings. The drift's communication patterns match theoretical models for extra-dimensional beings. Not from our space, from somewhere else. Explain, the head counselor commanded. Subin projected complex diagrams. The drift exists partially outside our normal three-dimensional space. It touches multiple dimensions at once. That is why it seems impossible. That is why most species cannot process it. Their brains evolved for this dimension only. And humans? Human evolution was chaotic. We developed in unstable environments, adapting constantly. Our neural structures are messy but flexible. We can process conflicting information better than most species. Not perfectly, but enough to survive contact. Another counselor spoke, a being of living crystal. You say danger is coming. What danger? The drift did not explain fully, Jae-won admitted. It said there was not enough time, but it was desperate to warn us. Thex stepped forward again. I will tell you what the ancient records say. The beings who created the drift called themselves the Builders. They existed across multiple dimensions. 50,000 years ago, they tried to warn our ancestors about something, a wave of destruction moving through dimensional space. It consumed their physical forms. They survived only by existing in the drift, between dimensions. The chamber fell into shocked silence. If this is true, the head counselor said slowly, then we are in terrible danger. It is true, a new voice said. Everyone turned. A human admiral named Young Soo Han had entered the chamber. He carried a datapad with urgent information. Long-range sensors have detected anomalies at the galaxy's edge. Space itself is becoming unstable. Reality is fraying. He projected images. The council watched as distant stars flickered and vanished. Whole regions of space showed impossible readings. When did this start? The head counselor demanded. We noticed it 3 days ago, but looking at historical data, it has been happening slowly for decades. We just did not recognize the pattern. Hye-won studied the images, her scientific mind working. This matches what the builders described. Dimensional collapse. If it reaches the main galaxy, everything dies, Subin finished quietly. Every planet, every species, reality itself breaks down. Panic spread through the chamber. Counselors shouted questions. Some demanded immediate evacuation of core worlds. Others called it impossible. The head counselor raised her energy field, commanding silence. How long do we have? Admiral Young-soo checked his data. At current speed, the collapse wave will reach inhabited space in approximately 100 years, maybe less. Then we have time to prepare, to research, to find a solution. No, Thex said grimly. The collapse is accelerating. It feeds on itself. We might have 50 years, maybe 30. Can we stop it? Jae-won asked. I do not know, Thex admitted. The ancient records are incomplete, but the builders survived it somehow. They might know. All eyes turned to Jae-won and his crew. You want us to go back? Jae-won said. Into the drift, to speak with the builders again? The head counselor's energy pulsed. The drift is no longer forbidden to humans. If you are willing... Captain Kim, the coalition needs you. The galaxy needs you. Jae-won looked at his crew. Hee-won nodded immediately, determined. Dong-min looked scared but willing. The others showed the same mix of fear and resolve. We will go, Jae-won said, but not alone. If humans can survive the drift, we need to train more people, build more ships, study it properly. Agreed. You will have full support, resources, personnel, whatever you need. Admiral Young-Soo stepped forward. Earth is already mobilizing. When word spread about your mission, volunteers started signing up. Thousands of them. They want to help. Jae-won felt something warm in his chest. Pride. Hope. Humans had been the newcomers, treated like children. Now they were being asked to save the galaxy. How long until we can return to the drift? He asked. 3 days, Hye-won said. I need to prepare better equipment, recording devices, translation programs. Then we have 3 days to get ready. Jae-won turned to the council. We will speak with the builders. We will learn what they know, and we will find a way to stop this collapse. The head counselor's energy field glowed bright. The galaxy is in your hands, Captain. Do not fail us. As the chamber emptied, Jae-won stood with his crew, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. 50,000 years ago, species had run from the drift in fear. They had made it forbidden, turned it into a death sentence. But that was over now. The Whisper Drift was not an enemy. It was a friend trying to warn them, and humanity would listen. 3 days turned into 3 weeks. The coalition scientists needed time to build proper equipment. Hye-won worked with Subin and dozens of other researchers, developing technology that could record the drift's communications. Meanwhile, Admiral Young-soo gathered a fleet of human volunteers. Jae-won spent the time training new crews, young men and women from Earth, eager to help. He taught them what he knew about the drift, how to let the whispers flow instead of fighting them, how to stay conscious when reality bent around you. One volunteer stood out, a young woman named Hai-ri-song, a diplomat skilled in first contact protocols. If we are speaking for the galaxy, she said, we need someone trained in communication. Let me come with you. Jae-won agreed. Finally, the day arrived. The Horizon's Edge, modified with new sensors and shields, led a fleet of 15 human ships toward the Whisper Drift. Thousands of aliens watched from a safe distance, monitoring everything. As they approached the drift's edge, Jae-won felt the familiar pressure in his mind. The whispers began, softer this time, almost welcoming. They remember us, Hye-won said, watching her instruments. The patterns are changing to match human neural frequencies. They are adapting to us, just as we adapt to them. The fleet entered the drift zone together. Space twisted around them, but this time Jae-won was ready. He closed his eyes and spoke. Builders, we have returned. We are ready to listen. Please tell us what you need to say. The whispers coalesced into words, filling the minds of every human in the fleet. You came back. Good. Time is short. The collapse approaches faster than predicted. We detected it. Our scientists say we have maybe 30 years. Less. 10 years. Perhaps 5. The collapse feeds on dimensional instability. Your faster-than-light travel creates small tears in reality. Thousands of ships, traveling every day for thousands of years. The damage has accumulated. Jae-won felt his blood run cold. Our technology is causing this. Not causing. Accelerating. The collapse began long ago, before your species existed. But FTL travel makes it worse. Every jump creates stress. Small, but it adds up. Hye-won leaned forward, her scientist's mind working. Can we stop it? Reverse the damage? The damage cannot be reversed, but it can be contained. We built installations, ancient machines hidden throughout the galaxy. They stabilize dimensional barriers. Keep reality firm, but they require conscious minds to operate. What kind of minds? Flexible minds. Minds that can exist in multiple states at once. Minds like yours. Subin spoke from her ship. You need humans to operate these machines? Yes, but not temporarily. The machines require permanent connection. Those who join with them will exist partially in the drift, partially in normal space. They will become like us, neither fully physical nor fully dimensional, in between. Silence filled the communication channels. Everyone understood what the builders were asking. Permanent sacrifice. Humans would have to give up their normal lives, their physical existence, to hold back the collapse. How many? Jaewon asked quietly. Thousands. Perhaps tens of thousands. The more minds connected, the stronger the barrier. The more time your galaxy has to prepare, to evolve, to adapt. Admiral Youngsu's voice came through. Captain Kim, I am opening a channel to Earth. The government needs to make this decision. But before the connection completed, Haeri spoke. No, this is not a government decision. This is a personal one. Humans must volunteer. You are asking people to sacrifice their existence, Admiral Youngsu said. No, the builders are asking, and people deserve the choice. Haeri activated a fleet-wide broadcast. Everyone listening, you heard what the builders said. We can save the galaxy, but it requires volunteers, people willing to join with the drift permanently, to become something new, something between dimensions. Jaewon expected hesitation, fear, rejection. Instead, within seconds, volunteers started appearing on his screen, hundreds of them, then thousands. This is Engineer Taemin from the science vessel Brightness. I volunteer. Medical Officer Bora from the Stargazer. I volunteer. Pilot Wan Shik from Earth Defense Fleet. I volunteer. The names kept coming. Young and old, soldiers and civilians, scientists and poets, all willing. Haiwan looked at Jaewon with tears in her eyes. Humanity. Sometimes we surprise even ourselves. Admiral Youngsu's voice was thick with emotion. Captain, we have over 10,000 volunteers already, more coming every minute. Jaewon took a breath. Builders, we have people ready. What do we do? Bring them to the coordinates we send, the installation sites. We will teach you how to connect, how to merge. It will not hurt. You will not die. You will simply become more. Lights appeared on the navigation displays, dozens of points throughout the galaxy, marking ancient builder installations. Fleet captains, Jaewon ordered, proceed to the nearest installation. All volunteers, prepare for transition. The ships dispersed, each heading to different coordinates. Jaewon's ship approached an installation near the galactic core. It floated in space like a crystal flower, beautiful and impossible. This is one of many, the builders explained. Approach slowly. Those who volunteer should open their minds. We will guide them. Haiwan stood. I am going. Jaewon grabbed her arm. Wait, you do not have to do this. She smiled. Yes, I do. This is the greatest discovery in history, a chance to exist across dimensions, to see reality from a completely new perspective. How can I not go? We need you here. Your research. Others can continue it. But this? Only I can do this for myself. She hugged him briefly. Take care of the galaxy, Captain. I will be watching, from everywhere and nowhere. Dozens of volunteers gathered in the shuttle bay. Young faces, old faces, all showing the same determination. Haeri was among them. You do not have to, Jaewon told her. Someone has to speak for humanity in the drift, she replied. Let it be me. The shuttle launched, carrying the volunteers toward the crystal installation. Jaewon watched through the view screen as they approached. The installation began to glow. Beautiful colors that had no names. The shuttle landed on its surface, and the volunteers emerged. One by one, they touched the crystal. Their forms became transparent. Not disappearing, but changing, existing in multiple states at once. Jaewon could see them and not see them, present and absent. Haewon's voice filled his mind, but it was different now. larger, deeper. J1. I can see everything, all dimensions at once. It is beautiful beyond words. And we are not alone. Thousands of us, connecting, becoming one with the installations. Are you still you? Yes, but also more. We are HFY and the Drift and the Builders and everything in between. Do not mourn for us. We chose this, and we are saving everything you love. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Tens of thousands of humans connected with the ancient installations. The dimensional barriers strengthened. Space itself became more stable. The collapse wave slowed, not stopped, but contained, held back. Admiral Youngsu's voice was quiet. Sensors show the dimensional instability decreasing. The collapse wave has slowed by 40%. At this rate, we have bought ourselves 100 years, maybe more. 100 years. Time for the galaxy to prepare, to evolve, to find permanent solutions. J1 stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, thousands of humans existed between dimensions, holding back the end of everything. Captain, Dongmin said softly, we are receiving a message from the Coalition Council. They want to speak with you. The head counselor appeared on screen. Her energy field showed colors J1 had never seen before. Gratitude, respect, wonder. Captain Kim, what humanity has done today will never be forgotten. You saved us all. Not just humanity, J1 said. The Builders helped. They waited 50,000 years for someone who could hear them. We just happened to be the ones with the right kind of minds. Still, the Whisper Drift is no longer forbidden. It will be renamed, the Speaker's Gift, a reminder of what we learned today. Years passed. The galaxy adapted to its new reality. Human volunteers continued joining the Drift network, strengthening the barriers. The collapse wave was held at bay, slowly being pushed back. Other species began studying human neural patterns, trying to develop similar flexibility. Some succeeded. Alien volunteers joined the network, adding their unique perspectives. The Drift Speakers, as they came to be called, existed everywhere and nowhere. They could communicate across the galaxy instantly. They helped coordinate FTL travel to minimize dimensional stress. They became the galaxy's guardians. J1, now an old man with gray hair, stood at the edge of the Whisper Drift one final time. His ship was different now, newer, faster, but he still preferred the captain's chair on the horizon's edge. Captain, a young voice said, his new science officer, just graduated. Are you really going? J1 nodded. My time in normal space is ending, but my time in the Drift is just beginning. Will it hurt? No. Hyewan told me it would not, and I trust her. He piloted a small shuttle toward the nearest installation. As he approached, he heard the whispers, but they were not whispers anymore. They were voices, friends, colleagues, Hyewan, Hairi, thousands of others. Welcome, J1, they said together. We have been waiting. He touched the crystal. Reality expanded. Suddenly, J1 existed everywhere. He could see Earth and the Coalition capital and the galaxy's edge all at once. He felt the dimensional barriers, strong and secure. He sensed the thousands of minds working together, human and alien and builder, all merged into something greater. And he understood. The Whisper Drift had never been a death sentence. It had been an invitation to become more than physical, to protect reality itself, to speak across dimensions. Humanity had answered that invitation, and in doing so, they saved everyone. The galaxy thrived for millennia after, protected by the speakers. The collapse was eventually reversed entirely. Reality healed. But the network remained, a gift from the species who learned to listen. The species who spoke back.